Hey there, rulers, DMO73 here with the deck profile for our Reflect Refrain contracting with Orb back in the meta. Let's go ahead and jump right in.
This session brought to you by Odyssey Games for pre-orders and sealed product, CCG Prime for tons of singles and supplies, Cardo Doko for international rulers looking for products, and FoulLibrary.com for articles and wonderful deck lists,
as well as our guest lecturer members Vite and Darren Noblock.
Class is in session.
So here you have the list. As always, the link to it on Force of Wind is in the description below, so you can go click on it yourself. And a reminder that Odyssey Games does have their pre-orders for Judgement of the Rogue Planet up right now. You can get those pre-orders in the link in the description below as well. So, Reflect Refrain, contract with Reflect Refrain, changed the world, Orb Evolution got unbanned, and so now we have a way to produce magic counters insanely fast, and so let's see exactly how that works with the new age rulers. The shell of this list doesn't look very different from what we've seen from previous contract Reflect Refrain lists, but you can build a lot more of the deck to be more utilitarian, more consistency driven, and less driven on generating magic counters, because you have natural magic counter generation through Orb pretty consistently. This also turns Magical Rabbit into an absolute beast of a card incredibly quick, and makes contracting Refrain particularly a lot more effective, because you'll have counters more often. In previous builds, you didn't always have a good way to get magic counters, so sometimes Launch of Megiddo just kind of was a dead card, which is why we relied on like the 2-drop Charlotte to do it that way. But now we're just playing 4 in the main board because it's just worth our time. So this is the build. It's very similar in driven and kind of based to the Only Foul TCG list that they put up in their tier list video. We just kind of tweaked it to some personal taste and some additional tech, and to shore up some bad matchups to make sure we can actually win games. So obviously we're playing a full play set of the contract. One thing that you'll note is that sometimes when you're playing this, it helps to just contract Megiddo for Refrain almost immediately. Right out the gate, you can just use it for mastery. It also works really well if you do it for mastery during your opponent's like first turn, because then Mover of Worlds can call your first stone, leaving you up to be able to contract Reflect right away too, which is very, very nice. Obviously, the 4 change the worlds, and then we have a nice little cancel package of memory, 4 copies of Memory of Worlds for contracting, a couple copies of Reflect and Refrain, the Guardian Twins, for some additional pressure, the ability to cancel activates and automatics, and to kind of win some trades while putting a big body on board. Playing copies of Conflict of Memory and Soul, as well as Sword of Progress. And then for some consistency elements, we're also playing First Boon Cassius Sword and Wanderer's Magical Storm. First Boon Cassius Sword having the additional benefit of setting us up for more cards to be able to cast from outside the game, to be able to contract more often if it's just like an incidental card we don't need. Something to keep in mind there. We're also playing 3 copies of Lorite and 3 copies of Persephone. Now, one thing that's really helpful with Persephone, we discovered this just recently, is against decks that are using Child of the Wind Moon, you can go into contract with Launch of Megiddo, and then when they try to Wind Moon Child it, use a Persephone to put Launch of Megiddo back in your hand and kind of burn the Persephone as opposed to the Launch of Megiddo, getting rid of the Wind Moon Child, and then you can go ahead and go contracting again, which puts up a lot of pressure in being able to get Mover of Worlds out consistently against those decks, which is really, really nice. We're also playing a couple copies of Girl Staring At, because it's nice to be able to blank the board, and then a single copy of Electra, because this deck needs to be able to beat Darktree. You're almost always going to be in control of being able to stop Darktree from resolving what it needs, but it's important to be able to actually win the game, which is why we play the Electra. And then another added here thing is Hide plus Shooting Star of Light. This is another really helpful thing in the control mirror to really help mess with other abilities, or even in control Reflect Refrain mirrors to be able to stop activate abilities, pop stuff that matters. It's just a very, very good card that's a really nice will sink at the end of the turn. And then lastly, we are playing 2 copies of Witch of Quenched Fire in the main board. It's very easy for Reflect Refrain to protect this card against decks like Brandheart, so it is very nice to be able to have it main boarded just to keep those decks in check for game 1. Obviously in games 2 and game 3 we kind of flesh that out a little bit more, or if we're playing against a deck that's not burning us, it gets sided out immediately. But the deck has enough pressure and ways to protect this card that it's not a bad card to have mained. It's almost kind of nice to be able to just have a game 1 out to those decks, which is nice. Stone base wise, you'll see down here it's 4 Moonshade, 1 Amadeus Holy Crystal, 3 Secret Stones of the Chaos Moon, and 2 Secret Stones of the Wanderer Moon. And then sideboard, you can flush it out, but we are playing a single Rogue Spectator because it's a really nice way to be able to always have a way to contract your own Reflect. And then also a Chain Sickle that we can get off of the Electra, which is really nice when you're playing against things like Neverent decks or Rumsfeld decks. It's really nice to be able to just get this and say, yeah, nope, that's not a thing anymore, and get it into the field. So that is the list. Link in the description as always. I hope you guys love it. This deck has been an absolute blast. I've been playing it for like a month, and it's really, really fun to play. I really enjoy it in kind of all the different matchups and kind of trying aggro, playing against aggro, mid-range, control mirrors. It's just a really fun deck to play and really gets to the core of what I enjoy about Force of Will. So I hope you guys try it out, enjoy it, and let me know your thoughts on Reflect Refrain in the comment section down below. So until next time, this is DMO73 saying class dismissed.